What's your kind of like take on this year as you look back now?
Great question. I think this year's been a down year for most firms, right? Just even if you're in search or whatever business you might be in. I mean, there are pockets of industries that are significantly hiring, and we've discussed that throughout the year. But there are those industries that have been decimated almost, right? With the fear, and I emphasize fear, right? Because everyone talked about a recession. Everyone was, eager to see a recession. The negative news sells, right? So when I look back at 23, um, I see a lot of people that were wrong, right? And now companies have to start thinking about rehiring, right? So all those candidates, all those people that those relationships were burnt, right? People
Yeah.
were laid off, and people will absolutely remember the way an organization made them feel. But, overall, we have had success with our clients. We've had some amazing relationships where if you have the right relationships and you do good work for your clients, when there is an opening, they will come back to you,
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
right?
Yeah.
So that's the saving grace in the work that you and I are doing and have done for this past year,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think that's been wonderful for us because we've been able to sustain, and actually we've been able to grow, right, in the US by expanding our team
Yeah.
this year, right? So we are well positioned and we're gearing up for whether if it's a soft landing for 2024 or it's a no recession in 2024, we are gearing up and we're ready.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. How have you found transitioning from in-house TA to talent advisory, consultancy, this side of the fence?
Yeah, I think there are some consistencies in terms of the search work, in terms of like dependent on the level, right? If I'm working on something that is very senior, whether if it's in-house or external, I follow some of the same processes,
Yeah.
right, in
Yeah.
terms of my search work. Um, but from a TA perspective, I have a unique view, right? I know the inner workings of how a talent acquisition system works, how HR works, how the stakeholders buy into a search firm, right? Um, you may or may not know this, but it can get very political in terms of, do you go search? Do you keep it in house? Those decisions are not taken lightly, and they shouldn't be taken lightly, because if an organization decides that they're going to spend a fee with you, then they should do their due diligence, right? And they should partner with someone that they trust,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I've been very fortunate. The transition from TA to executive search, I've had some wonderful relationships with people that have been within the organization that I was last with. Matter of fact, I've had some clients. We have some clients now together, because there are clients that I've known for over 20, 30 years, right? So it's not just the last 10 decade,
Yeah.
it's the last 20 plus
Yeah. Whole
years.
career.
It was
Yeah.
my whole
Yeah.
career
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
people know me and say, hey, you know what, Ed, you've been in this for almost 24 years, right? Would you run this search for me, right? And it's the trust, it's the relationships, it's them knowing me, it's knowing that they can text me at 9 o'clock at night, right? And I'm going to be there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't think you can buy that anywhere, right? But so the transition for me has been, I don't even want to use the word challenging. It's been refreshing, and I say refreshing because people want to work with me, and that's been an incredibly humbling experience, because it's like a tip of the hat, and it's like, hey, you did good work for me before.
Yeah.
Can you work on this for me now?
Yeah. Yeah. There's value in staying in the game. Like the longer you're doing the same thing for, the more people you know, the more experience you get, all of that kind of stuff. So in our industry, a lot of people move too often, I think. This year actually is interesting because some people have had to, right? Redundancies. A lot of search firms made redundancies. TA, loads of people out of work in TA. So it's been a hard year for our industry, really hard year. But by and large, like there's real value in staying in the same space, right? Like being famous for something, building your brand, and the longer you're in it, the more people you know, and all of those things. But I think this year for TA and recruiting's been tough, right?
Absolutely.
Like we've had like 2020, like August 2020 until end of 22 was just like so much hiring everywhere, right? Everyone was hiring. It was crazy. And then it fell off a cliff for some sectors, right? Like financial services, technology, was difficult. So a lot of those firms weren't hiring. A lot of the VCs pulled money, like kind of maybe like towards the end of 22.
Mm-hmm.
So you had all of these like tech startups, rescinding offers. I don't know if you remember that stuff towards the end of
Yeah,
last year. So
absolutely.
there's a lot of all that stuff. So it'd be interesting to see if people remember how these companies made them feel, or actually they don't really care, and they'll just go and they'll take the money. And if something better comes along, they'll go. Because we were talking a little bit yesterday about how frequently some people move now,
Yeah.
right? Like some people are moving every couple of years, less. But we're going to talk about poll in a sec about that stuff. So it's interesting if the behavior of companies and just happy to get rid of people when they're going gets tough is going to affect people's like loyalty and so forth, which I think it will do. But interesting to see.
Yeah. And I think, going into 2024, that loyalty will start to, I think, develop more. And let me explain why. I know that in New York, and I will be putting out a video on this. In New York, there's a new law that's about to get signed where at will is going away, right? At will employment,
Yeah.
right?
So at will, for those who don't know, is you can fire anyone for anything, right?
Yeah, that's right.
As long as you're not discriminating.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. So at will is going away,
Right.
right? Now, if if that goes away for organizations and it's about that close, I think it's about to hit the governor's desk.
Right.
If that happens, it's going to change the dynamic.
But then that's coming slight. So you've got a US for those that like no US, like the employment laws are massively stacked for the employer.
Right.
Right. Like if you're an employee, you can get cut for anything. You've got 2-week notice periods on average, right? Even at the most senior level. And so that affects people's mindset. Like a lot of Americans are very entrepreneurial.
Of course.
I think that is a big reason why people are really happy to go try stuff, because this myth of job security doesn't really exist in the US, right? And then in Europe, where I am here, France is quite a good example. Even the UK, our employment laws are quite favourable for employees. Our notice periods are longer. 2 years plus. If someone's been in a role 2 years plus, you have to go through documented evidence as to why you want to let this person go, and all of that stuff. So it's interesting from your perspective coming from the US, where it's so stacked for the employer. These little small details, it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, no, I mean, there are a lot of things that are very different. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, you and I discussed diversity, right?
Yeah.
Diversity is another topic. At will, which we're talking about now. Pay transparency.
Yeah, tell us about that. So what's that going on? Because we've got that coming in Europe in a couple of years. But give us a little, because that's been key topic this year, hasn't it?
Yeah, for equal pay, right? There's been this push around getting people up to the right levels in terms of compensation, right? If you compare men's male and women, right, there's inequality there. And then there are other inequalities when you start to go really, macro, right, into other segments like diversity, right? So when you start to look at the numbers, there are some incredible differences in percentage wise. So in terms of pay transparency, companies now have to, when they post a job, and this is starting to circulate from state to state.
Right.
New York was the recent state, California has it, and there are several other states that have it. Well, when you go from state to state that have already implemented, when you post a job, you now can no longer, you can't ask, right? Someone's, hey, what are you making, right? What are you earning?
So a recruiter and an internal TA or HR, whoever it might be, can't ask a candidate what they're currently earning.
No, it has to be volunteered, right? It has to be volunteered information. And then now companies have to look state to state, and when they do their postings, right, if they're an organization that's in multiple states or almost every state in the US, then they have to look at their postings and have to tweak them, and either if the law has passed, well, they don't have to They would not have to put the salary range on the job description, but if the law has passed in that state, they have to put the salary range down on the job description.
Okay. Okay. So you have to put like it's X to Y. It's interesting though, because I think Netflix, I think maybe we'll pull up an example of this on here. On their job descriptions, they do like $10,000 to $1 million.
Right. Well, that's a little that's an exaggeration of the scale, right? So that's where checks and balances comes in.
Yeah.
Right. That's where the government. Well, let's not call the government out on Netflix, right? Because
this is state by state.
State by state.
So the state, the local, the individual state decides.
Yes.
And then federally.
Well, it hasn't been mandated federally, right?
Okay, fine. So it's state by state currently.
State by state.
Yeah. But if you're a company, a global firm, or you're in the whole of the US, by and large, as standard, as maybe good practice or best practice, you're going to be putting your salary range on your job adverts.
That's right.
And job descriptions.
That's correct.
Yeah. Interesting. And what's been the effect?
Well, it depends on who you speak with, right? If you have, I've had conversations with HR leaders. They've had concerns around, their employees. If you know exactly what your peer is making or earning, right? I mean, it's just open conversation now, right? So there's a lot of work that needs to go into level setting in terms of salary information, right? There are organizations that consider it taboo, but when you even look at the, from a generational perspective, I think, I have a niece, she's in her early 20s. They talk about salary regularly, right? It's like, hey, what movie did you go see last night? Hey, what's your salary like, right? They kind of talk about it. It's out in the open.
Well, it's interesting, yeah. He's not really the done thing in England. Like, you don't really go to the dinner table with your mates. You're like, how much are you earning, mate? How much are you earning, mate? You don't really... It's funny, we're talking with our colleague Monica in San Francisco, and she's like, no, we all talk about it, which is really interesting. I did do a poll on it. I can't remember the stat results, but we'll pull it up. But there was a stat of like, do you actually want to know what your colleagues are earning?
Interesting question.
Right? Like, do you really want to know? Because, it could cause animosity. If someone's earning less than you are, you feel you should be earning more than them. The other big thing about all of this, right, which is also really interesting, is you have like the external market and you have the internal market, right? We've talked about this before, haven't we? So you have the internal pay, right, where unfortunately it doesn't pay to stay a lot of the time. Like in a lot of large companies, you get maybe inflation, maybe you get a little pay increase, whatever. Suddenly you see this job ad and you're like, hold on a second, I am not even getting paid bottom of the range.
Right.
This person's coming in. They know for a fact they're going to be at least bottom of the range, but I mean, who wants to get paid bottom of the pay range? Like no one, right?
No one.
So you can't ask people what they're on, it doesn't matter. And so you're coming in, asking their expectations. They can see the range. So you've already anchored someone on top of the range, right? So obviously I want to get paid top of the range. So there's a whole thing. So I had a friend of mine, he's a CFO, and he was like, man, like everyone's coming asking me for a pay rise because I need to up everyone and I can't afford to up everyone.
Right.
So there's that to work through, which I think's pretty interesting. Yeah. Have you seen it? What have you seen on that?
So I've seen this in different ways. I mean, the in market. So I've regularly gotten, I've definitely gotten into conversations with clients about in market versus in internal pay, right? And we regularly will have people ask us about, what are we going to pay for this particular position? What's the salary range, right? And then they'll try to benchmark it off of the backfill or the individual that was in the role, right? But in market is different. If you go out in the market, you're going to get more money, to your point, right? If you're internal versus external, right? So there's an exercise that each organization has to take on, right? They have to look at the in market, and then they have to create a program that they should be creating a program that regularly looks at that kind of data, whether if it's every 6 months, whether if it's every year. But it's important to look at the in-market data, because the in-market data is what your internal population is going to be looking at when they're going to consider to make a move outside of the company. Now, if they're getting a cost of living raise with inflation, right, is that enough? Right? If you get a 3% raise or a 4% raise, is that enough to cover the groceries? Well, those are the hard questions that are not being answered. And those are the considerations and the variables that are not being answered by organizations. Is it their responsibility, right? They have to run a business,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
You have
absolutely.
to run a business. Is it my concern, right? Because inflation is high and internally we can give you a cost of living raise,
So
but in market is a lot higher. So are we going to let them go anyway, right? And then the flip side to that is if you let them go, then you're going to pay more. You're going to look for a firm like ours to backfill that role, and it's going to cost you more anyway.
yeah, it's obviously not all about the money. But the other thing is, what do you think about pay per location?
Pay per like wait,
Pay by location. So the pay by location is, I don't know, let's say you're living in San Fran
right?
or New York, expensive, right? And you're getting paid X. And the company say, okay, you know what, you can go move to a lower cost location,
Sure.
but you're going to get a little 10% pay cut or to reflect the cost of living. Or maybe you're living in Sao Paulo, maybe it's X% cheaper than living in San
Sure.
Fran.
I'm from the school of thought. You look at your high cost regions, right? And you scale from your high cost regions from a financial perspective, right? If you do it that way,
Yeah.
it puts you in a good situation in any state. So, for example, now others
Well,
will
you mean you'd pay them all the same?
pay them all the same,
Right.
right? But you benchmark off of the higher regions,
Right.
right? Let's say California, Jersey, New York. You look at your high cost regions, right? You build it into your business model, right? Now, to your point, there's the other side. There's the other side of the argument. Well, your money can go a lot further, right? We just wrapped up a search where it was it opened up the candidate pool because their analysis was done based off of the New York market, and we were able to look at the entire 50 states,
Yeah.
right? Without worrying. We were looking for what? The best talent, right? Our job is to go out and find the best talent for our clients. So in that case, because they did the market analysis in New York, we were able to go out and secure the best talent.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So that's an example of how it works.
Yeah. 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 I think most companies, if you look globally, they're paying based on the country, right? So they wouldn't pay. It's unusual you see someone getting a New York salary in I don't know, Cape Town or
Well,
something.
you're talking country to country,
Country to country, yeah.
a little different.
Yeah, yeah. So I think which I think's fair. I think it's fair to pay people a good salary, fair salary for the country that they're in, for the job that they're doing. Yeah. State by state's interesting. I think Facebook or Meta did pay by location, right? You want to go live in somewhere else, it's cheaper, we'll pay you a little bit less. In fact, in the UK, we had like this thing, I think it's some companies still pay, we had this London allowance
Mm-hmm.
where if you lived in and if you worked in London, they'd give you an extra bit in the salary,
Mm-hmm.
which is a London allowance because London rent's more expensive and stuff like that. But if you move out of London, then you don't get that.
Mm-hmm.
So you do have that here, which is quite interesting.
Interesting. That is interesting.
Yeah, yeah. But look, there's two. I think the both sides of the coin are really interesting. On one side it's like you want to pay X for the job. Who cares where they live?
That's right.
Best person for the job.
Best person for the job.
But then there's obviously nuance to it, right? So I think that's interesting. It's coming in Europe in a couple of years. Everyone in Europe, so watch out. I think it's going to be super interesting. So,
Yeah, I guess you'll have more people setting up time with their HR leaders.
Well, I mean, here it's like you ask people what they're earning.
Right.
Right, it's part of the process. It's very normal. It's like we're in it together. We're going to try and negotiate the best deal, a win-win, etc., etc. 95% of people are really happy to share what they're earning,
Right.
and then and then they tend to make an offer. It is often based on what you're currently earning,
Mm-hmm.
which is hence like the problem, right? If someone's being paid under market rate for whatever reason, it's difficult. I mean, you see a lot of immigrants being paid under market rate. They come into the country, so I think there's issues with it, but anyway, we're moving this way, and hopefully it'll be fairer for everyone.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. Let's talk a little bit about remote and office. Back to office, remote, fully remote, 5 days. Because I think that's obviously been like a discussion point for years now. But I'm seeing here more and more companies want people back in 5 days. A lot of the banks, 4 or 5 days in. I've got a friend of mine who works for a bank. He has to tap in and tap out. I think 1 week he was only there 3 days. He got a phone call from HR saying like, mate, what's going on? Another friend of mine cycles to work. He goes around the back entrance, wasn't registering his card. He got a phone call from HR that you need to be in 5 days a week. And then you've got other end of the scale, a firm like ours, where with no office, fully remote, and so forth. There was also a poll. I think it was a survey. I'll share it again. Actually, I've shared it before. And I think it was Harvard Business Review, and they polled CEOs, and it was something like 60 or 70% said that they thought by 2026 people will be back in the office 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Where do you sit on all of this?
I think the question is, do you want to hire the best talent, right, as an organization, right? And if you want to hire the best talent, then you provide an atmosphere that's more flexible, right? If you want to, from a recruiting perspective, if you want to localize or regionalize your recruitment, right, and find the talent that's in that particular best talent in that particular market, then that's, as an organization, you have to be comfortable with that. But in reality, when you start to look at return to the office, what is this really about? This is about commercial real estate, right? This is about leases that cannot be broken, right? If you're a company that signed a 20, 25-year lease, 30-year lease, the leaseholders are sitting there, I'm not letting you break your lease. I'm sorry. I get it. If your team doesn't want to come to the office, that's tough luck for you, right? It gets sugar-coated. It's not about building collaboration in the office. It's not about the walking in the hallway. It's not about that.
I think there's a couple of things. I think the real estate thing for sure. Secondly, I think there's a lot of people, this is the other side of the coin, right? And there's a lot of people that are average performers to low performers, right? They don't go all in, right? And they won't go all in the office or at home. But I think a lot of leaders struggle to build high performing teams, and they without seeing people. I think that's a lot of leaders find it really difficult to manage a global team, to motivate people that are underperforming when they can't see them and things like that. So I think a lot of people, they revert to like the presenteeism thing. It's like I can see them, so they must be working, or they feel more comfortable trying to motivate people when they're sitting in the office with them. I think there's a lot of that, right? A lot of
Excuse
that.
me.
Because also there's the other thing. There's always this analogy, right? Like some people, right? And we all work with these people, right? They work their ass off. They're just reliable. They're the top performers. They're the top performers wherever they are, right? They could be in the office, out the office. You just know who they are, right? And then and on the other side, you know the people that aren't performing.
Yeah.
Right? In the office or not. And I think we have a lot of that. Like I spoke to someone the other day. This is the other side of the coin that you don't hear on social media. And she was like, I don't know how I'm still employed. I do no work. And they can't say anything. And she's at home 5 days a week. I had someone else said the same thing. So there's a lot of variation, I think, to it.
Don't you think those are outstanding circumstances? I don't know if everyone's
Are they
home.
outstanding?
I mean, I've been working from home.
But you're one of those top performers, Ed.
Yeah, but
So,
I've been working from home for even before COVID,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. I'm playing devil's advocate here,
I know
right?
you are. I know you are.
But I think, so, Lila, you know what? It's like, so you have this, you do have this in the world, right? Where you have, it's Simon Sinek does a great grid, right? And he got it from the American Army. And so the grid is, high will and skill, right? Will on one axis, skill on the other. Mm-hmm. And, like the US Army, their analogy is like, you want someone who's high will, or high trust, high will, and high skill, right? Top of the quadrant. That's like the ideal person to hire, right? Like, I think the US analogy is like, you'd rather be in the trenches. That's what you want, the high will. And then you'd rather have someone that's high will, medium skill than high skill, low will, right?
Of course.
This is it, right? So you want to hire, this come back to recruiting, is you want to recruit these people that are high will, like they're self-made, they're on it. But there's a whole variation in the workforce. And I think if you're a leader, well, let's say you're a middle manager,
okay,
right? You've been looking around this year. everyone's been made redundant, right? You're like your job, and just I think there's a lot of people who are a bit nervous, and they maybe they haven't had the training, and they find it easier to get people in, and I think there's a lot of that.
I think it's extremely interesting to take a look at. You should be looking at every position case by case basis. There are some roles that will never require someone to interact with another individual, right? Other than the people that you're interacting with via video. If you have a global job, right, and your team is global, you're probably sitting in a conference room. It's highly likely and probable.
Oh, yeah.
You're sitting in a conference room, and there's no one in the conference room with you, and you're just having video calls. So tell me why I can't do that from home. Right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Tell me why I can't do that from home, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's about position. You have to look at each role and the levels. The levels are very important as well. So if you have someone that's more junior, that's coming in to learn from someone that's at the manager level or above.
Yeah.
That's another variable that you add into it. But the hard work needs to be done by your organization, your OD, your talent management organization, and your people function, right? The hard work needs to be done. You need to look at each of the positions. You need to look at each of the levels. I'm not opposed to return to the office, right? I mean, we've been doing it for years, right? But I'm not opposed to it. It's just, don't say to people that, oh, it's kumbaya, right? It's just like, oh, we're back in the office. It's like, hey, it's not about that. It's like, let's be real. Tell people the truth.
Yeah. You also have to remember though, I mean, you're talking about big companies.
Yeah,
with
sure.
An OD function and a people function and stuff like that. So I think it's like, if you're struggling as a leader to run a workforce, which is some in the office, some remote and stuff, go get some training, right? Like take responsibility for yourself. There's loads of great online stuff that you can do, and you can acquire the skills to be able to put processes in place and all of those things, right? To feel comfortable running a global team. It's
Absolutely.
very different. Even our industry, I mean, in London, a lot of recruiting firms, people are in 5 days, right? And then you have us where we're completely fully remote. So you have to do what's right for your company.
Of course.
You have to think about the reasons to your point, like why do you want people in if you want them in? Is it the cuddly culture stuff? Is it the fact that you just have no idea how to manage people if they're not in front of you, right? Which might be the case. And so take some responsibility for your learning. If you have a learning and development function, get them to start doing some stuff around that. And obviously, you have to put like a little kind of asterisk behind this. There's many jobs where you have to go in. So if you're in a job where you could work from home, it's really, really fortunate. It's a lovely thing to do, right? A lot of doctors, nurses, all of those people have to go in.
Absolutely. But with the white collar worker, count yourself lucky that you can even have the conversation. Well, better technology, right? I mean, we're a society that technology is evolving as fast as possible, right?
We couldn't do what
look at AI coming in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, actually, absolutely another big theme. I mean, for us, as in our firm, we're completely remote. We have people all over the world, and if we didn't have the technology that we have now, I don't think we could have run it quite how we are like 10 years ago or something. It just wouldn't have been the same. So it's interesting. I think this AI, all the tech has just enabled us to be able to work remote. I think it's wonderful. I think just on the individual as well, because we talk a lot about the companies should be, right? You always hear that a lot. And I think as an individual, my advice to people is take responsibility for yourself. You're learning, be dependable, be reliable, like go hard. Like you've got to work hard to get anywhere in life, and whether that's at home or in the office, whatever whatever your scenario is, like go all in, and you just put yourself in a really good spot.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you like the term goal, and I like the term you go hard, right?
Yeah.
Go hard with whatever you do, and I picked that up from my mom, right? No matter what you do in this life, just go hard at it, right?
Yeah. Become
Become the best at what you're doing, right? And that's going to separate you from everyone else that's doing it, which is why I love recruiting, right? I strive to evolve and learn every day.
Yeah.
Right. I think we talk about us. I mean, how long you've been in the game, how long I've been in the game. I think together we've been in the game almost 80, 90, 100 years, right? I mean, when you start adding
Well,
up
me and you, I'm a bit younger.
a little
No,
younger
40,
than me.
probably 40, 45, yeah, probably more. Yeah. I
Let's
mean, like
say-
20 years
no,
in the
man,
game.
no, I'd say 50
I mean,
years.
20, yeah.
All right, 50 years.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah,
I'd
yeah.
say
Yeah.
50
That's
years.
a solid effort. That's a solid effort.
I think that's a lot of experience, right?
Yeah.
That's a heck of a lot of experience when you
Absolutely.
start looking at search,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So when you start to really drill down, right? What does that mean to go hard, right? We know what we need to do to deliver. We know what we need to do that, for our clients, right? Because we're listening to our clients, you know, diligently, right? And I think it's important as well that you bring that kind of behavior in and day out, right? That go hard behavior.
Yeah.
And you get results with that kind of behavior. I mean, if you're not getting results, then tweak it, do something different, but still go hard, right?
Yeah.
So you're always going to trial and error something, I think.
Yeah. To like pun an American sports term, it's like have a great ground game.
I have a great ground game.
Ground game.
Ground game.
Yeah, so my accent's not great. Have a great ground game, right? Turn up on time, like dress well, work hard, be organized. Just like the basics. Get the basics right, and then everything else builds on that, right?
Yeah.
So it's just super important. My big thing for this 2024 for people to work on is like we talk about AI and stuff, but like the human skills, your ability to have conversations with people, listen to understand, not to respond. Those things. If you can up your communication conversation game in 24, it's going to be like you just because it's so often like when I get feedback from clients. I don't know about you. All candidates, and always like my first question is like open-ended. It's like, how did it go? Right? Always just you kind of I off the bat, I'm like, how did it go? And so often, I'd say like 80% of the time, people lead with the personal things. I feel like it went well. I'm like, well, what do you mean? And it's always like I got on with them well. It's a personal relationship, right? Like the connection, the human connection, and stuff like that. And so, if you want to land that next job, get that next promotion, win that deal, so much of it's like your ability to build relationships and communicate and stuff. So go hard on that. Can we do some polls now?
Let's do some polls.
Right. We've had a lot of polls this year. Thanks, Amira, for compiling my list. Right. We're going to share. I'm just going to go through a few. We'll give our perspective. The poll's going to come up on the screen as well. And then we can go through here. So I did a poll recently. These are all recent, right? What's that? The whole year. All right, the whole year. So this is like the whole year. Some of the best ones. This is quite an interesting one, right? Because there's been a lot of discussion about 4-day working weeks.
Okay.
Some countries have trialed it. I think in Scandinavia, I think they trialed it. A lot of people talking about it. So my question was, do you think 4-day week is more productive than a 5-day week? And so while you're thinking about your answer, I'll give you the poll results. It was like people absolutely 47% of people, no way 10% of people, it's not that simple 43% of people. So where do you stand on a 4-day week?
I think it's interesting. I remember this poll when you put it up. I may have been one of the voters for 4-day work week.
Interesting.
But what I'll say about that is I don't remember the last 8-hour day that I've had.
Do you know what? You didn't only vote in it, you commented on it.
Oh,
I'm going to read your comment. It's a great comment. It's a great comment. I just noticed it now. It wasn't pre-prepared. So your general point was measure output.
Fair.
So it's not about 4 days, 5 days. So I think I agree. I said great point, Ed. I think it's about output. I think interesting. Like I'm not pro 4-day week. I have to say. I think depending on the job, right? There's context. I think to the job. I would probably vote. It's not that simple.
Yeah.
Again for me, like I'm all about just doing. I do everything I need. I'm like go all in on everything. If I'm working, we're in an advisory firm,
Right.
so we're there for our clients. I'm there I'm there.
That's my
anytime.
point. Right. We're there
Right.
all the time.
I'm there until the search is finished. I'll speak with candidates whenever. We do global searches. Time zones vary. I'm even one of those guys, like, I don't like putting an out of office on. Because, like, sorry, Mr. Client, I'm not, I don't like doing that stuff. I know there's a whole argument to get, but for me, it's like I'm there for you until the job is done. But I also protect my energy. I integrate I do a lot of, as you know, like a lot of exercise. I try and eat well and I integrate and stuff. So I'm not getting burnt out, because burnout is another massive conversation thing that we've had this last few years, right? Over COVID and everything. It's always been there. It's just talked about more, I think, now. So anyway, that's my perspective on that 4-day thing.
Yeah. And again, my comment was about output, right?
Yeah.
Whether if you're delivering on 3 days, whether if you're delivering 4 days or 5 days, right? I mean, in the end, it's about delivery. I'm from the same school of thought as you are in terms of our clients. Accessibility is important, right? There are many cases where I give clients my personal number. I want them to text me. I want them to reach out to me, especially now, right? Now elevating into, becoming your head of North America, right? I want the team to have access, right? They need me, I'm there, right? I'm there to support them. I'm there to, whether if it's, 11 o'clock at night and I don't know, something's gone wrong, you need my advice on something, send me a ping and I'll make the time. It's all about accessibility. So that we can deliver, right, together, right? I'm so focused on the outputs.
Yeah.
And, whether if it's output from the team, whether if it's deliverable for our clients, it's the outputs that unfortunately we get judged on. And
That's good though. That's what you want. It keeps you honest. But you can still integrate other things in your life to balance. So, yeah, I think you have to balance things. You have to be there when you need to be there. But there's other times where, it's a bit slow, or you've just delivered something and hey, you're not working, So you ebbs and flows, I think. But you definitely have to integrate stuff in your life that that keeps your energy levels up, all of those things. So
yeah, things that are for you.
Yeah, I'm all into that.
Agreed.
I'm all into that. Other poll. This is a great one. I'm gonna paraphrase this, right? This is essentially you interviewing a candidate and they've had 5 jobs in 5 years. You asked them a little bit about it. They mentioned bad bosses, toxic cultures, not the right fit. My question was, would you hire someone like this? So if you resume 5 jobs, 5 years. So I did the poll. Would you hire someone like this? 58% of people said absolutely. But they would hire someone like that. 30% said no way. And then 12% said other.
What did I say?
I think you avoided commenting on this one.
Did I?
Yeah.
So let's say that my position is based around a certain aspect of your question.
Yeah.
If you're talking negatively about an ex-boss or an organization, that's a red flag to me.
Right.
Some people say that that's, these things happen. Listen, I think we've all had a manager or a leader or someone in senior leadership that has maybe not treated you, or at one time of another, things haven't gone well, right? So we've all felt, that kind of emotion, right? Now, if it's more about moving from one role to the next for the compensation, well, we'll take a look. Well, I will take a look.
Yeah.
We'll take a hard look at that person. But as soon as they start talking negative about someone, because the way someone speaks negative about their past manager or their past organization is the same way they're going to talk about you.
Yeah, no, true. That's very true. No, absolutely. Some of the comments here, like the two sides to it. One was like, maybe they're the problem and they would completely avoid them. 5 jobs in 5 years. Maybe they haven't chosen the right jobs. Once, what do they say? Once is a fluke, twice is a trend, or something. What's the quote? Can't remember the quote now. Anyway, and then the other side is actually, context is important, which is what I think. It's if you think this person looks good on paper or they've got the right skills, definitely invest time. Find out what the context is, explore some of the moves they've made, Why have they made some of the moves they've made? What's happened? Certainly this last few years, there's been, as we talked about at the beginning, there's been a lot of redundancy. We've had COVID. Some people have had to move a lot through no fault of their own at all, right? I just happened to be in a firm where they've cut.
Sure.
Even recently, we're still seeing job cuts. So I think it's important with context. If it's just because of, I don't know, hey, these guys offered me a little bit extra money, and hey, these guys, then for me there's a red flag. Also, in certain leadership roles, again, like you don't make an impact. You can't make an impact in a year. Right. Like if you're doing a CFO job, again, we talked about this yesterday. You've got to be in it for a bit to have any kind of conversation around the impact you've had and stuff like that. So anyway, I think there's context to it. I wouldn't rule people out straight away. But definitely, I dive into and explore some of the reasons.
I agree with that. Wholeheartedly. And it's important to have the ability to lay the foundation and groundwork. And there's something about having a little bit of longevity and investment in your career. I don't know if that's being lost, and maybe it's more generational. Maybe it doesn't matter. It's going to be an interesting phenomenon to continue to take a look at, because I think from a generational perspective, I think some of the younger generation that are between maybe that 21 to 25 year range, they don't mind moving and walking away from a company. They just do it.
Yeah, no,
they don't think twice about it.
No, it's true. But as you get into leadership roles and you're building businesses and you're running P&Ls and things like that,
right?
There's value in being around for a bit.
Absolutely.
You have to, obviously, if you hate your job or you've got really just this dreadful culture, and absolutely move, right? Life's short. But if it's just that the ups and downs of business, or you're finding it difficult and stuff, just get your head down, grind, get through it.
Agreed. And that's the space that we play in, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We play in the leadership space, right? We play in that director, VP, C-level space, right? And you want people that can show results, show accomplishments, show the achievements, right? And how do you get those? How do you get there?
And also navigating difficult moments. Businesses ups, downs,
That's
not
true.
always good, not always bad. So once you get into that leadership role, I think then there's value in sticking at it for a bit.
100%.
So let's move on to another one. I think this is quite interesting, and I'm seeing a lot of this, as I know you are. We talked about AI. And there's a lot of people now that are using AI to apply for jobs, write their resumes, write their cover sheets, right? So for those that don't know yet, LinkedIn has an auto apply function. I think that's the #1 jobs board on the planet. So you can just set your criteria and it will auto apply for jobs.
Yep.
So you don't even have to think about it. And then if they come back to you, and you need to send a resume, then you can get ChatGPT to write your resume. So you copy and paste a job description into ChatGPT, and you can ask it to bespoke your resume related to the job. You can even get it to write you a cover sheet. Once you get the interview, you can then even put the job description and ask it to predict the questions that the interviewer might ask, and then give you the model answers. So my poll was, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about candidates using AI to apply and prepare for interviews? So 58% of people said they were concerned about authenticity.
Okay.
37% said very impressed. Where do you stand on it? Is that something you would advise your son to do?
Incorporating AI into the way you conduct a job search is smart, right? Where's the technology? The technology's there, right? So we had a client recently, and we submitted several resumes. Now, based off of the feedback, the client said to us, well, with AI, all the commas should be correct. All the spaces and the commas, not the spelling, right? Let's make it very clear, right? I can understand the misspelled word or something like that, where we're talking commas and spaces, right? So it was very interesting. Why didn't they use AI to look at to fix this, right? So the question becomes: our clients, are the evaluators, are the hiring managers now expecting candidates to leverage AI for better product, better resumes, to improve your candidacy,
Yeah.
right? I'm going to say yes, because we're hearing about it more and more. So to my son, what I would say to him is create something yourself and then have the AI make it better, right? And have the AI improve it,
Yeah.
right? The authenticity is important because when you create something, the AI, when you ask the AI to improve on it, it's still yours,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would use every single tool available to give yourself an edge, but don't turn up to the interview and then you don't want the interviewer thinking, hold on a sec, like this isn't the same person. Like you're writing about this here, but you can't even speak to me. I think there's a lot to be said for make sure that what you write is true and you're authentic about it and you can speak about it.
Yeah, 100%.
There's people that are, so on the AI thing, there's people that is grinding out content clearly just written on ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And you ask them about it and they can't even discuss the topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't
you can
disagree.
just tell, right? And we're all into content, right? Build your personal brand and stuff. So again, like one thing, if you're not doing it this year, if you're a candidate or you're looking for a job or just any professional, hiring manager, candidate, whoever you are, often you're both, spend time building your personal brand, like contribute to the conversation, dive on LinkedIn, comment, do content, stuff like that. It's important. And so then once you go for an interview, because I think, everyone looks at people's LinkedIn profiles and that, right? Whether you're being interviewed or if you're an interviewer, everyone's looking at your stuff. And so make sure what you write about, you can speak about too.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. I'll tell you. So there was another client that I was working with this year, and there were candidates utilizing AI as a language interpretation, right? So they couldn't speak English, but they were using AI. They would speak in their native language, and then the AI was speaking to the interviewer in English.
Incredible. Yeah.
So one person would say, hey, that's incredibly innovative. Well, the HR manager, the HR leader said, this isn't, how could I hire this person to be in front of my stakeholders if they can't speak English in front of them?
You've got the criteria for the job. I mean, it varies, right? I mean, if the job requires you to speak English, then you've got to speak English.
Agreed.
I mean, but to your point now, I mean, look, hey, if we just look forward, like not even a year. I mean, Google do these pixel buds that translate off the bat live.
Yeah.
It's
crazy.
YouTube,
it's freaky.
You can stick on the things on YouTube, right? It will translate for your stuff. It will start speaking. Maybe you won't have to speak English. Maybe we'll sit down in like a year from now and we'll speak with someone that speaks a different language to us. I can't speak their language. They can't speak my language, but we can communicate.
I mean, someone sat there, created this product, and it was remarkable.
Yeah.
It was incredible. It's like, oh my goodness, we can now have a conversation, and
it's like Star Wars, Star Trek stuff, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It totally is.
Yeah. It's great. So, yeah, and I think it's great. And I think it's only going to get better.
Right.
And it's about communicating, which is to my point, right? Have to be able to communicate. I remember I just watched this. We've been watching this David Beckham series on Netflix about a bit about his life, and he joined Real Madrid back in like 2003 or something. Couldn't speak Spanish, and he went out for dinner with Roberto Carlos, who's this Brazilian left back, like one of the best left backs to play for Real Madrid and the whole thing. And he couldn't speak English, and David Beckham couldn't speak Portuguese, Spanish. But he probably spoke both. But they had a 2-hour dinner together, just from like body language. He was saying they were laughing and so there's other ways to communicate, and with the pixel, with the buds, and with like translation stuff. I mean, even we use Google Meet or even Zoom. Like you can put on the live captions in different languages.
Sure can.
So we can get on a Google Meet and we can speak different languages, and then we can.
But I want to go back to your question, the impact of AI, right?
Go on then, yeah.
So, and to your poll, I think that embracing AI. It's here to stay, right? It's not going
No,
anywhere.
no, no.
It's only going to get better.
Yeah, yeah.
It's been created to improve, right, our lives, right, to help us, right? And I think even in our work as in executive search, right? I mean, we use AI for transcription, for insights. We use AI for research. We use AI for a lot of different areas, right? When it comes to our work day in and day out. And it helps us increase in speed, right? It helps us deliver on output.
Yeah.
So I think there are very smart ways to utilize AI,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Um, I think if you're an individual and your facade is completely AI, then that's the wrong direction, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's the, like you say, it's the end,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
the end game to you.
Yeah, yeah. It's an and game. Like everything works, right? Be authentic. For us, it's incredible, right? Like we're using AI and automation to help us be more efficient, and it gives us time back. We're having like 2, 3, 4 hours a week easily back.
Yes.
Maybe even like what, a couple hours a day? Couple hours a day back, so we can spend more time with people.
Do you
More
remember
human
in
stuff.
executive search, you used to have to do a book on people? I don't know if you've ever did that.
I
We'd
used,
have to do a write up,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
pages and pages of a write up to submit to a client.
yeah, yeah. We used to write up, and we still do the write ups.
We still do the write ups,
But we have tools to help us
of
do
course.
it quicker, maybe be even more insightful. 5 minutes left. Okay, got 5 minutes left, guys. So it's incredible, and it enables us to spend more time with humans.
Right.
So the authenticity, I think, is like super important. 5 minutes left. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to just do what are your thoughts on 2024 from a jobs hiring perspective?
2024 jobs hiring perspective. My outlook is optimistic. Um, in fact, at Bentley Lewis, in the role of head of North America, right, which is now, a different way for me to sort of think about what I do day in and day out, right? My focus is not only to build a business for us here in the US, but to work with each and every individual on building their business successfully, right? And what that means. Again, I'm very optimistic about the economy. It's great that the Fed has come out and said no recession. It's great that some of the known economists have come out and said, well, if it's no recession, it might be a soft landing. It's great that the major banks, Wall Street, has come out and said, well, we're probably looking at a market above 8,000, above 7,000. I mean, my point is that optimism is starting to circulate through the media. Now, as we know, negativity will always sell. Fear always sells, right? So we'll still hear some of that. Also, in terms of the amount of elections for next year, I think you and I have
70 country elections next year across the world.
that's 70 country
That's
elections.
7-0. Yeah.
So, the face of the globe will absolutely change,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it's going to be an interesting year. I mean, the other really cool thing is that clients are already reaching out to us. We're having discussions about who they're going to hire, or get ready, ramping up. We're having the discussions around how can you help us? Here's what we're doing now. We're looking to bring partners in. So we're having all of those discussions. Much different feeling than 2023.
Yeah. Nice. For me, I feel I'm very grateful that we have surrounded ourselves with so many positive people in our company. So very optimistic about this year. But I think honestly, I'd say I'm cautiously optimistic, because apart from some other crazy thing going on the planet, another war, a natural disaster, or something outside of our control, I think for us it's been getting better and better. Right, the start of the year to the middle of the year is difficult for many people. A lot of redundancies and stuff. we cut across a few different industries, and some industries were hiring, some weren't. We've started to gradually see more and more searches. So like Q3, Q4, it slowly started to build and
Totally.
improve, which has been good. 23 is definitely less than 22. And I think this 24, as you said, like a lot of conversations, a lot of people are very positive about the year. And it's self-perpetuating, right? Like if you're confident, you'll spend money, you'll invest in that new person, that, you know, in that new strategy, do that new thing, start that new business line, whatever. Like, I think there's a lot of people that are just ready to go now. You know, like they're just tired with all the negativity.
Yep.
It's never quite as bad as people have been saying. I know it's perspective. Like I know a lot of people have had a really difficult year.
Sure.
Right, if you're out of work and things like that. So, but if you look at the macro, I think things are getting better, and I'm looking forward to it. You know, like you got to live every day, do the things you can control, move forward. So I'm excited for the year ahead. It's gonna be a good one. It's gonna be a good
Awesome.
one.
And I think we've got some great clients, right? I mean, when you look at our portfolio, when you look across every industry, right? I mean, the industries that we cover, we cover, I would say, almost all.
Man, it's great. We've got some great, I mean, life sciences, pharma, tech, consumer, industrial stuff. We've got a wonderful team. We're moving in the right direction. It's great, you know, a lot of it's who you surround yourself with. And also our job is so great. I mean, you end up speaking with so many incredible people. We speak with thousands of people every year.
Yeah,
We're
absolutely.
leading companies, leading industries, innovating. It's so inspiring to speak with these people at the top of the tree, and just to hear what they're doing. You know, there's a lot of people that are very optimistic, positive, and just driving forward, which is great. So excited.
Awesome.
Excited for another podcast in London. In fact, when I come to New York next year, we'll get a podcast studio in New York and we'll do a little sesh.
You have to bring the whole team, though.
Yeah. Well, look, they're here.
You have to
They're
bring
ready.
the whole team.
They're ready.
Make sure you bring the whole team so we can actually have a, you know, Europe meets US.
Well, we need to do a global meetup. We were supposed to do it this year. It didn't happen. So we'll do it this year. We'll bring everyone together and we'll do a nice big sesh.
I'm in. You know, what's interesting is I think we're a week away from Christmas, right? And Hanukkah just started today.
Hanukkah's today. Yeah.
Right? Hanukkah's today.
So we need to release this.
We're about a week and a half away from Christmas.
Yeah.
I just want to say, you know, thank you, Lewis. It's been great to partner with you in this year one. I'm looking forward to year two. Happy holidays to you, your family as well. In the end, it's all about family. And it feels like that's what we have as a family, right? My hope is that, you know, I can do for the US what you've done with Europe.
Absolutely. Great to have you. Happy Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Great to have you on board. And looking forward to another great year.
Incredible.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Done. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Please do not forget to subscribe in all the usual places: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you like to watch or listen to a podcast. Any comments or feedback, please drop us a DM. If you've got anything that you want us to discuss, again, feel free to get in touch. Have a wonderful day.